يا جماعة ما تلاحظون ان هذه كلها تتحرك؟ كل هذه كلها بسم الله لا اله الا الله اعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق.
Despite the countless horror stories and haunted places featured by online streamers, it's probably rare for you to come across a chilling tale from the Middle East. While the internet is flooded with chilling tales from East Asia and Europe, most horror stories from the Middle East remain largely unnoticed by global audiences, until one particular story from Kuwait surfaced online. This is an old tale that originally circulated locally in the late 1990s and only went viral globally through the internet around 2022. It centers around a folk singer named Nora. She and her band were invited to perform at a wedding in a quiet town on the outskirts. However, the night took a dark and disturbing turn. Through this video, you and I will dive deep into the legend of the wedding incident that Nora had to endure. And by the end, you will see how this story is actually a strange blend of fact and fiction, with a bizarre twist from far, far away in 2011. And it all begins with a worn-out cassette tape.
صالح يا اختي ايش علامة ما تشخلق ما تحكي ولا تسولفين.
والله هذه والله متفرقة حتى حين ما تشوفين كل سنة ايون القواويص 4 أشهر وفوق 10 أيام والسنة صيفوا علينا يا ام صالح.
يا حبيبي
والله ما علام هو نسيت انت نسيت.
Someday around 1997, a man stumbled upon an old cassette tape, and what's inside terrifies him. The tape once belonged to his father, a veteran journalist from Kuwait who had passed away. On it was one of his father's recordings, an interview with a well-known singer who introduced herself only as Nora. However, the interview is anything but ordinary. After realizing the disturbing nature of the recording, the son decided to pass it on to a fellow journalist with one clear instruction: it must not be aired, only transcribed. And this is what the interview reveals. The tale begins in the early 1990s, in an unnamed Arab country, where a folk singer named Nora had risen to extraordinary fame. Her voice carried the warmth of celebration and the melancholy of memory. She led a band of 6 women, together forming a musical ensemble that lit up weddings from royal courts to countryside gatherings. Their fame spanned borders, their schedule was booked for months, and then suddenly they disappeared. No explanation, no farewell, just silence. Years passed, rumors swirled, but answers never came. Until a journalist, driven by curiosity and reverence for Nora's legacy, managed to find her. She was no longer the vibrant woman he remembered from television. Still, she agreed to an interview, a rare moment of openness as she had turned down every request before. Finally, there was a chance to uncover what truly happened behind her sudden retirement. The interview started, and he asked his first question: "Why did you stop singing?" "Are you sure you want to know?" she asked. He nodded. "More than anything." She sighed. "Then listen well, and promise me every word you hear will remain unchanged." He swore it. And so, she began. It started with a phone call, a woman's voice, desperate and pleading. She wanted Nora to perform at her daughter's wedding tonight. The girl had dreamed of Nora's voice blessing her day. No other music would do. Nora refused at first. The request was too sudden, and today was supposed to be her band's day off. But the woman wouldn't relent. She wept, begged, claimed her daughter had tied the success of her marriage to Nora's appearance. Reluctantly, Nora agreed. That night, Nora and her band of 6 women drove to a distant estate, following an address scribbled in haste. They arrived to find a lavish mansion glittering with lights, music, laughter, and an abundance of guests. The place was stunning, full of lights, decorations, food, children playing, laughter, music, a truly extravagant wedding. The kind you know costs a fortune. There are so many guests, we could barely move. A little while later, the bride's mother appeared. She was a large woman dressed in black, odd for a wedding, but warm, cheerful, and full of gratitude. Soon, several young women from the wedding party came in to greet them, hugging Nora and her band like they were old friends. Nora and her band felt the warmth of the welcome, and at first glance, it looked like the perfect wedding. But something felt wrong. One of the girls in my band turned to me and whispered, "Nora, did you notice how dry their hands felt when they hugged us? And their faces, they were rough, cold." I cut her off. "Enough. You're imagining things. Let's just do our job." However, the bizarre things didn't stop there. The groom wasn't wearing traditional wedding attire. Instead, he wore something strange. And the bride's dress was black, with scattered white patches and strange symbols stitched into the fabric. The stage, the kosher, was draped entirely in red fabric. From a distance, it looked like a gaping mouth, screaming. The groom never spoke. He didn't even look at the bride, and she didn't look at him. Like 2 people being forced into this marriage. The first performance ended, 3 songs drowned in wild applause. Nora, overwhelmed by a strange sense of vertigo and unease, slipped away from the noise. The air downstairs felt too thick, too loud, too wrong. She climbed to the 2nd floor, where silence clung like mist. There, a slightly open door caught her eye. Inside was a room that didn't belong. The rest of the house was luxurious, glowing with wealth. But this room was old, abandoned. The bed was worn, the walls cracked and weathered, and a strange heaviness hung in the air. Despite the unease, she entered. The cramped room downstairs had offered no peace. This, at least, was quiet. She lay on the ancient bed and closed her eyes, hoping just for a few moments of peace. But instead of rest, she slipped into darkness. A darkness deeper than sleep. At that very moment, the nightmare began. I dreamt of a woman, wearing a long black dress, her eyes terrifying. She was chasing me, screaming. I woke up in panic, gasping for air. Still breathing hard, I sat up on the bed. The door, which had been closed, slowly began to creak open. I watched in horror as the handle slowly turned, and there she was, the same woman from my dream, wearing the same black dress. I closed my eyes, opened them again to be sure. But when I looked again, she was gone. She jumped from the bed and threw open the door. The hallway outside stretched into shadow, silent and still. The air was stifling, heavy with something unseen. Then, movement. A boy, no more than 6, appeared in the corridor, barefoot, dressed in a pale tunic. He giggled softly, walking toward her with unsettling calm. As she stepped forward, he suddenly dashed off, laughter echoing behind him. Without thinking, she followed. The corridor feels like it stretches on forever, warping with every step. At the far end, the boy darted up a staircase. She ascended after him. To her surprise, the third floor felt different. Darker, colder. The walls were stained brown, cracked like old bones. The smell was rancid, like something dead had rotted in the walls. The light barely reached this place. She found the child ahead, standing by a door. He turned briefly, then slipped inside. Nora reached the door, but it was locked. She knocked, but there was no answer. Turning to leave, something seized her ankles. She screamed as she was yanked to the ground and dragged, scraping against the cold tiles. Her cries echoed, then were swallowed by a voice, low and inhuman.
Sing, I love your voice.
"Who are you?" she shouted.
Don't be afraid. No one dies before their time.
Then the dragging stopped. The voice turned soft.
I'm a friend, a loyal one.
Released, Nora scrambled to her feet and ran, stumbling back down the stairs, breathless and terrified, until she reached the room where the others waited. Inside, Nora found the others huddled together. At the center was Shams, one of her band members, sitting trembling while her face looked sickly yellow. Tears streamed down her cheeks, and her body shook as though her bones no longer knew how to hold her. Nora knelt beside her, gripping her arms. What happened? Shams looked up, and her eyes wild. You were gone too long. The guests were getting restless. I went looking for you. I saw you go upstairs, but when I got there, you were gone. She paused, her breath catching. Everything upstairs felt wrong. The air was heavy, like something was watching. The walls, they had faces, carved right into them, twisted, in pain. She tried to steady herself, but shivered again. I heard something, like someone breathing. I opened a door. It was empty. But when I turned around, a figure was there, just standing in the corner, perfectly still, like it had always been there. Her voice dropped. I couldn't move. My body just froze. Then I started walking toward it, against my will. Her hands clenched tightly in her lap. When I got close, I felt heat rush through me. Its eyes were glowing white, but its face blurred, like it wasn't fully formed. The figure looked directly at Shams, and after a while it said,
I want to hear your voice.
I ran. Everything was spinning. Then a man came rushing at me. He shouted, "What are you doing here?" I told him I was looking for you. He yelled again, "Don't ever come up here again." After that, I ran. I ran until I found the others. Nora took her hand. "You're safe now, Shams." Shams shook her head slowly. "No, we're not. This house, it's wrong. The walls feel like they're breathing. There are things, shadows, moving in the corners." I looked at her and said, "Shams, enough. This isn't helping anyone. Let's just change clothes and finish the set. Then we can leave." We were all shaken. But I gathered the girls and we returned to perform the second half of the wedding. The second set began with a traditional muwasha, a melodic ancient Arabic song that floated like smoke through the hall, casting a brief stillness over the crowd. Then came their usual repertoire, the familiar rhythms meant to revive the party's energy. But as the clock struck midnight, something shifted. The guests suddenly became louder, unsettlingly so. Their clapping was harsh, their voices eerily out of sync. It didn't feel festive. It felt like something else had taken over. The women in the crowd, previously still, started dancing in abrupt, unnatural movements. As their dresses swayed, the band caught a glimpse beneath the fabric and froze. The legs weren't human. Dark, coarse fur covered them. They ended in split hooves, just like goats. Shock rippled through the band. One by one, their voices began to fail, thinning, cracking, disappearing. Nora signaled them to keep playing, but terror clung to their limbs like chains. Then Shams collapsed. She trembled and wept, whispering that the guests were Djinn, that the wedding was a trap. And deep down, I knew it too. I had to act fast. I said, "Listen to me, Shams. We can't leave right now. If we try, they'll hurt us. There's not much time left till dawn. If you want to survive this, come sit with me. Don't dance, don't sing. Just stay still, keep your head down. Don't look anyone in the eyes." Shams nodded. They returned to the stage, heads down. The guests had only grown more frenzied, dancing with wild abandon, drumming on bizarre instruments that looked handmade and cruel. And the food, it was all meat, nothing else, and they devoured it like animals. Then one dancer began screaming, pulling out clumps of her own hair, blood running down her face. It was real, too real. Nora whispered urgently, "Keep playing, slowly, don't stop." And then suddenly,